Today we're going to look at doing a project. We're going to call this project Sports Card Tracker. Now the purpose of this project is to keep track of your sports card collections, whether it be baseball, hockey, football, basketball. The user will be able to add, delete, or update information about their sports cards. This includes images, item details, and card location. We will be using Apache NetBeans IDE 29, javafx 26, OpenJDK 26, and MySQL database. The first thing that you should have already set up is your database in MySQL. I've named my database Sports Card Tracker. We won't go into how to create databases or the use of MySQL in this video. There's plenty of videos out there for you to refer to for that. The second thing we will need is our template to work from. I've created my template for this project, called it Sports Card Tracker. We have our main class already set up and our Sports Card Tracker. They're both blank. I've also created a couple of icons for my frames that I'll be using, and they're 64 by 64 pixels, the proper size for a icon. In our properties, under sources, you can see I'm using JDK 26. Under our libraries, I have added my javafx library and my MySQL connector library. For the MySQL connector J, I have to use the product version 8.0.17. It's the highest level that will work with Apache NetBeans and javafx. So I have to go into the archives in order to retrieve it. I choose my product version and I selected my operating system as platform independent. So once that's downloaded, I went and added it to my libraries and I called mine MySQL connector. Then I added my jar here. Under compiling, make sure you have compile on save deselected. Under the run, make sure that you have your VM options set. I will be leaving a copy of the VM options that I used in the video comments. So that's the housekeeping taken care of. Let's get into the coding. Now, because this is a JavaFX program, we need to add in extends application. And as always, make sure that you choose your JavaFX imports. We need to add in our override. Public void start. Stage. Don't forget your import. Now this throws an exception. So make sure that you declare that it throws an exception. We're going to leave this blank for now because there's a few global constants and global variables that we have to create. We have to create the global variable stage, and we are call ours primary stage. And we have to create a layout for the stage. And I'm going to make mine a border pane layout, and I'm going to call it main layout. Don't forget your import. So now we'll add our constants. Our first constant is going to be for our first window. It's going to be smaller than the main window, and I'm going to call it a login window. So it's public static final int login default width, and I'm going to make it 300, and then we need the height, so it's public, it's private static final int login default height, and we're going to make that 150. Now we need our main window, so let's clear that now. Final int default width, and we're going to use a 600 by 600 screen. So our default height is also 600. But we're going to create a couple of other variables that we'll need. We're going to create another constant. This one here is the link to our MySQL database that we'll be using. So it's private static final, and this one's going to be a string, and it's the URL, and it's going to equal JDBC colon MySQL colon // Now, because my database is located on my computer, we're going to call it localhost colon the port. I just chose the default, which is 3306, the name of the database that you want to connect to. So in our case, it's ports card tracker semicolon. Now I'm going to create a couple of more variables. Private button, cancel button, and private button login button. And don't forget your import. Make sure you choose the javafx import. So we left a blank start method here earlier. So let's fill in the information. So first things first, we're going to set up our border pane, and we're going to call it root. Now we're going to create our scene, and we're just going to call it scene. This new scene, and we are going to pass it our root. Don't forget your imports. Our primary stage. Stage. And we are going to give our primary stage a title of ports card tracker. We are going to show the login screen. Now for our main, use launch and pass it our arguments. We added the command show login screen, but we don't have a method set up for that yet. So let's set up one now. This is going to be a hidden method, so we want to call it private void show screen. Now in here, we are going to create our login screen. We'll use our main layout. And it's a border pane. Inside of our main layout, we want to have a grid without using a grid. So what we're looking for is a place for the user to enter their username, their password, and then they have the option of cancel and log in. To do this, we are going to set up a series of vertical boxes and horizontal boxes. In our vertical box, we want to have room for 3 different rows. In each horizontal box, we want to have room for the label and a text box field for them to enter in the information. And for the final row, we want to have our 2 buttons. Let's create our VBox. So it's VBox, and I'm going to call it column VB for VBox equals new VBox, and we'll use 3 for 3 rows. I'm going to add my imports. So let's declare our 3 rows. HBox row 01 HB for HBox equals new HBox. Because I want 2 containers in my HBox, I will use 2. And I'll add my import. This one here is row 02 HB equals new HBox. Change that. HBox row 03 B equals new HBox. Now we want to create our scene. So it's scene, my scene equals new scene. And we want to add to our scene our main layout. And we want to use, because this is a login screen, we are going to use the login default width and the login default height. Login default width, login default height. Now we're going to add our scene to our primary stage. Set scene, my scene. And then we're going to add our icon. So it's primary stage dot get icons dot add new image /more /resources /login icon .png. I'll add my import. Make sure I choose the javafx import. So now we're going to declare the contents of our scenes. So we're going to make our items. Content. In row 1, we want to capture the username, so we need a label. We're going to call it username label equals new label, and we're going to ask for the user. Now we want to align it. So it's username label set mint. The alignment we are going to use is POS dot center right. That's a constant. Ladder imports. So I want to add a javafx label. And then we want to add our geometry POS. We want to have a minimum size for our label. So username label dot set min size, and we are going to use 150. In our second row, we want to set up the label to ask for the password. So our user password equals new label, and we're going to ask password. And again, we want to set up our alignment. So it's user password label set alignment OS, and we want right. And again, we want to set the minimum size. User word table set min size, and we want it to be 150 by. So those are our two labels. Now we want to set up the text fields for the user to enter in their name and their passwords. Our user name equals new text field, and we'll add in our import for text field. Make sure to choose the JavaFX one. And we want to set the minimum size. User name set min size, and we're going to use the 150 by 50. We want to declare the password. So it's var user equals new. And now, because this is a password, we can't declare a text field. We want it to be secure. So JavaFX has what they call a password field. My import. And as we did with the username text, we added a min size. We're going to add a min size for our user password. Min size, and we're going to make it 150. I'm going to drop a few comments in here. So I've added a label comment, a text field comment, and now we're going to be working on buttons. So I added a button comment. Now, if you remember at the top, we went and globally declared a cancel button and a login button. We are going to initialize them now. So cancel button equals new button, and I'm just going to call it cancel. Now my cancel button is going to have a min size, 150 by 50. We're going to do something different with our cancel button. We want to give it red text so that it stands out differently than the login button. So to do this, it's cancel button set style we're just going to use fx text fill red. Now that will change the text to red. Now we need to declare the login button. Login button equals new button, and I'm going to call it login. So we want to set a min size for our login button. So it's login button dot set min size, and we're going to use 150 by 50. So our buttons are created, our text fields are created, and our labels are created. We should now look at creating some sort of functionality. Now, if you're like me, when you enter your password, you usually just press enter. What we're going to do is we're going to make it so that if you press enter in the password field, it will trigger as if you pressed the login button. So to do this, we go user password dot set on key pressed. So we're going to call an event. Now this is going to look at what key you pressed, and if it was the enter key, we want to perform an action. Now to find out what key was pressed, we need to query the event. So if it was the enter key, we want to trigger that they pressed the login button. Now to do this, we go to our event. We want to get our code that was passed. That would be our key that was pressed. And if it was the enter key that was pressed, we want to perform a specific action. Now this specific action is login button dot fire, which basically means you pressed the login button. Put in our close bracket. And we want to import. There. Right now, we don't have any functionality set up with the cancel button. If they did press enter, nothing would happen. So let's add an action for the cancel button. And let's just comment. That is comment actions, where we're putting our actions. So it's cancel button dot set action. And in this case here, we want an action event. I'm just going to call it AE for action event. We want it to trigger. If they hit the cancel button, that means that they don't want to do anything. They want to exit the program. So let's put in exit program steps. I'm going to add my import. Make sure I choose the JavaFX import. So to exit the program, it's the simple command platform.exit. Now let's add the functionality to the login button. Login button set. Again, another action event. And this time we're going to call it login action. Now that's going to trigger. Put my a semicolon in there. Now that's going to trigger our login to the program. So our thoughts on this is when you log into the program, you're logging into the database. If you can connect to the database, then you successfully logged in. A database login will be the verification of your login credentials. So we're going to get your username and your password. So to do this, we need to create the variables for your usernames and passwords. I'm going to create a string called user, and I want to get the username from the text field. To do this, it's username text.get text. And it's the same for the password. So string, and I'm just going to use pwd equals user password dot get text. Now I'm going to try to connect to the database using your username and password. This could cause a crash. So what we're going to do is we're going to encapsulate these commands in a try catch. Now, before we try to connect to our database, there are few imports that need to be done. I'm going to add the import java.sql dot connection import java.sql dot driver manager and import java.sql except. Forgot a period there. We'll add that in. Now we can go back to our login button action. So our try and catch will be this. Try connection, and I'm going to call it connection, equals driver manager dot get connection, and we're passing it our URL, the user, and the password that was applied. If the connection not equals null, then we know we connected. So we want to perform a set of commands. But if the connection was unsuccessful, we want to catch the error. So I'm going to add a catch. I'm going to call it SQL exception key. And I'm going to send out the message. Connection failed. And I'm going to send out the print stack trace. If the connection was successful, we are just going to send out the message. Connection successful. And we are going to trigger a new scene. Then we're going to create a sports card tracker. So sports card tracker equals new or tracker. Inside of our sports card tracker, we are going to create a new scene. Now this may cause a issue, so we're going to do another try catch here. It's tracker dot switch to main. We're going to pass it our login action, our user, and our password. And we're going to catch the error if there is one. call our exception E. And we just want to know what the error was. So we're going to print out to our screen exception and what the exception was. Once we have all of our brackets figured out and get our errors all cleared up, we now want to add our labels, our username and user password, and the buttons to our rows. Adding items to containers. So our first row, row 01, get till all. Now in our first row, we want to have our username label and user text. Row 01 HP. So our second row, row 02 HB dot get children dot add. In this one here, we want to get the user password. So we want to add the label first, user password label, and the user password. And in our third row, 03 HB, we want to add in our buttons. Get children and our buttons are cancel button and our login button and button. Now we want to add our rows to our column. So to do this, it's column db.get children all, and we want row 01 HB, row 02 HB, and row 03 HB. Now we need to add these to our main layout. So main layout dot get children. Now we're only adding one this time, so we only need one add. So it's column VB. And finally, we want to show the primary stage. It's primary stage show. Now we're not ready to run this yet. If you remember up here with our tracker, we have a method that we called from our sports card tracker that we haven't set up yet. So let's go into our sports card tracker. So in our sports card tracker, private stage, private scene, and private parent root. We'll add our imports. Now, because we are getting the username and password from our login screen, we need to have a place to store them. So I'm going to create two variables, private string username and private string user password. Now we need to create the method switch to main. So it's public void switch to main. And we're passing to it an action event, and we're also passing to it a string new user name and a string new password. Ladder import for action event. Make sure we choose the javafx one. Our root needs to be declared to be a border pane. We'll have to add the import for border pane. Now we'll need to set up our stage. Stage is going to equal to, and we're going to cast it into a stage type class. We need to grab from the login screen, and we're going to cast it into a node. We need to know the event source. So event.get source. We need to know what scene it was. And we need to know what window it was. Ladder import for node. Now we want to add a new icon for our main scene. To do this, stage get icon set all new image. We're going to put in the location of the image. So it's com/bor/resources /port card _icon .png. Now we want to initialize our scene. So it's scene equals new scene. And we're going to pass to it our root. And we're going to pull from our main class the default width and the default height. So it's main dot default width and main dot default image dot set scene. And we're going to pass that our scene. Finally, we are going to show our stage. So let's compile it. And then we're going to run it. So you can see here, we have our icon, our sports card tracker, username, a text field to put the username, password, a text field to put the password, a cancel button, and a login button. So we're going to log in using bad credentials. And you can see we got a connection failed message. So let's just cancel, and it closes the program. We're going to try to run it again. Let's log in with the correct credentials. And click on the login button. It takes us to our main scene. We also put in a command that if we pressed enter on password, it would automatically trigger a login button. Let's try that. So I'm pressing enter, and it takes me in. Now, if we had the incorrect credentials and we pressed enter, let's just show you, we would get our connection failed. It would give us an opportunity to try again. Put in the proper password. We can log in. So that's part one of our sports card tracker project. Tune in next time and we'll look at menus.